You're listening to All Burgundy and Gold, everything powered by the Urban Sports Scene at Fox Sports Radio, 96.9 FM and 1340 AM. Hopewell, Virginia, excuse me. I was finished eating, so my mouth is all kind of jacked up. Ooh, pause. That ain't sound right either. That ain't sound right. I'm George, I'm my co-host, George and Glenn. The homie Mo run a little late, but he should be jumping on as well. What's going on, fellas?
Hey, nothing much, man. It's playoff week, dog, and I'm excited to be a Commanders fan, and then we're ready to roll. Ready to talk about Commanders tonight. So
no, this is dope, man. George, how about you, man? How you feeling, bro?
I'm like Glenn. It's like, man, we're talking about the Commanders in the playoffs, and it's not some baloney. It's the real thing, man. This is, of course, the only thing is, it's like we only ever played Tampa and Seattle in the playoffs. It's so
I know,
weird.
right?
All we've played for 20 plus years.
I know, bro. It's wild, right? Like that's the only teams we can play. Jeez.
I know it's crazy, right?
It is. Like George right. It's either Tampa or Seattle. It's like it is crazy.
Hey, shout out to those in LA. Prayers go out to them.
Shout out
prayers
to
go out to LA. But Washington could be playing in Glendale, Arizona this weekend.
Oh, and you just gonna say, if you thought we were going to take over SoFi, if we were playing in Arizona, that whole stadium would be
that's a whole thing. I feel bad for the Rams, to be honest with you. That's like that.
Yeah, there'll be more Vikings fans there than Rams fans.
I know. I feel bad for them. Like I hate when that happens to a team. You know, I mean, first off, like Glenn said, man, prayers out to the folks out there in LA. That is just horrible. But in terms of like football, I hate when a team has to relocate because of like natural disasters or something like that. Because it's like you play so hard for home field advantage, and now you don't have it.
And then your local fan can't travel, right? Your local fan, a local average person is not going to travel to Glendale, Arizona.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Like you got season tickets, and then it's like it's wild, man. I know. I feel if I'm a Rams fan, I'm like, dang, you know what I mean? Like I would get it. But yeah, man. Again, I want to say it one more time, man. Prayers out to the folks at LA. I think that's very important to say. Like, what they're dealing with is it's insane, man. It's insane. But first, subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast platforms. Just search All Burgundy and Gold everything. Also tweet us at ABG_everything and hit us up on IG and TikTok at ABG_everything. Also, if you're on YouTube right now, hit that like button right now. And also for other folks who are not on YouTube, go to our All Burgundy and Gold everything YouTube channel and subscribe. Just add to the squad, man. We got a bunch of cool folks on this chat that's down with the squad. Y'all might as well jump on board. You know what I mean? We got a great community. I'm not just saying that, we just do. Let's let y'all know. And if you feel very generous, you know what I mean, hit us up with some super chats on YouTube. I won't lie to you. I mean, the regulars, y'all get your shine. I will not play it off. But if you do give us a super chat, those super chats will be profiled. I mean, will be highlighted. So I'm not gonna lie to y'all, we'll be highlighted. But the regulars, y'all know y'all always gonna get love because y'all were, y'all day oneers. So it is what it is. We are also streaming on the Urban Sports Scene X handle. So you can also go there on X to view us there as well. All right, it's time for the pregame. Here's what we have on tap. We're going to discuss when we knew this team was was playoff contenders. That's the topic. When we knew this team was a playoff contender. All right. So the Commanders finished the season 12-5. It was a great season. We just talked about it. Nostalgic feeling. Like this is just an amazing season. We haven't seen anything like this in a long, long time. But I'm gonna start with you, George, man. But at what point did you say to yourself, all right, man, we got a playoff team here?
It was the moment that Jaden Daniels launched that ball 70 dadgum yards and it got tipped and somehow fell in Noah Brown's hands.
Okay. Wow.
That was the moment for me because that moment was so insane and so unbelievable on top of everything else that had already happened with this team to that point. Because that made us 6-2.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that, and I looked at the schedule and said, I think because the other thing too is something like that happening, it feels like you're not going to waste that and not make the playoffs, right? Like you can't have something like that happen and then end up like 8-9 or 9-8 and miss out. Mm-hmm. It's like that. You can't waste a moment like that. And then of course, I was looking at ahead at the schedule and saying to myself, oh, I felt like from that point on, I felt like 10 wins was a certainty, and 11 or even 12 wins was likely. Because again, the schedule looked like what it did. Of course, we didn't know the ups and downs that we were headed for after that, obviously. But that was the moment for me. When that miracle happened, it's like we've got to go to the playoffs. We can't not. It would be such a waste.
I'm with you. So Glenn, what about you, bro? Because Paul has my answer, so I'm gonna wait till Glenn goes. And Glenn, you may have my answer too.
I'm gonna say a game that most people won't agree with me on. Yeah. To me, it was a Carolina Panthers game.
Gotcha.
And I'm gonna tell you why it was a Carolina Panthers game, because that's the time we knew what the offense was. That's the game the defense actually started to step up a little bit. We saw how this defense could be. I know it was against Carolina, but you saw the defense moving. You saw the turnovers, what this team could do when they could turn the ball over, right? When they cause turnovers, and how quick this offense can score even without Jaden Daniels. And I was like, because that still lingered in my mind. Okay, if Jaden,
that's a good one. That's a good one, bro.
If Jaden is not hurt, Jaden hurt, he can't play. Marcus could still win some games. And I was like, you know what? This team just won 40-7, and they didn't miss a beat with Marcus Mariota. And I was at that game. And so I was sitting there at the game. I was like, you know what? This team actually they're 5-2. You know, I'm thinking this team actually got a good shot, man. It's 5-2, 7 games, 10 games left. If they even go, you know, if they go win 5 more games, I thought they could get in at 10-7, right? I thought 10-7 would be a good mark. Like, this team could probably win 5 games. So at that moment there, when I saw they had a backup defense, Dante Fowler was playing high. That's when Louvu was still playing great. And I was like, you know what? This team actually has a shot to make the playoffs. Cowboys wasn't playing great at that time. Eagles just started to roll.
Yeah.
Right. They were still dissension in the ranks in Philadelphia at this point. And so I was like, you know, this team has a chance to win the NFC East. And this team has a chance to get to the playoffs, whether it's last seed, whatever seed. And this coaching staff had this team playing, and I saw a lot of energy. So that was the game for me, where it says, you know what? They came out and they actually dominated an opponent. And this defense is actually playing, because up to that point, we had questions about the defense. Well, now we still got questions about defense too, but that's a whole different story.
Yeah, we still do, but I think I know what you're talking about. They just seem like more of a complete, complete team. That's a good point, though, too.
Yeah,
because I was very impressed in that game too, as well. So I'm gonna put something Paul said, because I totally agree with it. This is when I kind of knew. I kind of felt that way when they beat the Bengals on Monday Night Football. I said it, you know, it got real. Like I agree, Paul. I felt like that Monday night game was something different, because I didn't expect for them to. Granted, see how the season played out with Cincinnati, but I didn't expect for them to stand. I expect for them to go blow for blow with Joe Burrow. Like Jayden going blow for blow with Joe Burrow. That's when I was like, okay. Like, and you're looking at the landscape of the NFC East. I'm like, okay. Like, all right, we can get in. Like, we're contenders. I'm not saying we're contenders. When they did that on Monday night, prime time, against the Cincinnati Bengals, and the way we beat the Bengals, and we went for the kill, and just the performance, that's when I knew, like, all right, we're a problem. That's personally when I felt like we're a problem. That's when my narrative of the Travis Hunter Bowl changed. It was like, all right, this is not a thing anymore. Like this is where we're at now. We're not at that. Like, we're at a higher level now. We're a stronger team. We're one of the best teams in the NFC. And so I'm with you, man. Like, hey, Paul, I'm with you. That was the game, man. And he said also the Cardinals game, because I remember we said on the show the defense needed to show some pride. They did need to show some pride. But yeah, the Cardinals game, yeah, it was impressive. But something about that Bengals game, it was just something different. It was prime time. Like, and it wasn't like we were going blow for blow with the Bengals. It isn't like our defense was stopping the Bengals. They were still scoring, but we went blow for blow with the Bengals. That was for us, from offenses we've seen in the past. Man, you couldn't tell me anything, man. You couldn't tell me, like, all right, this team wasn't a postseason team. So I'm going to ask you a secondary question, a follow-up question to that. Like, when, you know, in that whole that process, which player did you feel like kind of held it down in that aspect? Well, then what Glen, Mo's here, I'll ask. So let's put Mo in the field. What's up, Mo?
How's it going, guys?
What's going on, bro? Hey, so I'm going to ask you, Mo, I'm going to ask you the question I asked the fellas already. So at what point in time, and this is just actually for you, because you're not a Commanders fan, so this is amazing. So what point for you did you realize this Commanders team was playoff contenders?
It was 2 pivotal moments for me. The first one was pretty early. It was that Monday night game against the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah.
In that moment in time, I remember seeing Jaden drop back, staring down the, I believe it was a safety that was blitzing him from the
Yeah.
right-hand side. He stared down the gun barrel and let it rip. I was like, oh, they got one, right? And if they got one, all this team has to do is be, 500 or so, and they'll get in the playoffs. But I think the real statement game was going into Baltimore, which was the DMV Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And even though it was a loss, in the record book, the way how tough the team played against the Baltimore Ravens, which everybody thought was going to be a perennial favorite in the AFC at that point, and to play formidable over there and to lose by one score, I believe was the total.
Yeah, one score.
I think that told everybody what they need to know, because everybody had been already having the Ravens in the AFC Championship at that point of the season against the Kansas City Chiefs to rematch Week 1 with a toe where they lost by a toe. So to go up there and perform like that in a game that for the area at least was like a big deal, right?
Yeah.
Man, I remember that morning I woke up to go to the gym, and the highway from exit 15 in Largo
Crazy, man.
was crazy. Everybody was trying to get to the tailgate, and go, because the two teams play once every 4 years, so it was a big deal. And to have a quarterback playing at that level at that time, I felt like Commanders fans really believe that they can go in there and notch that victory out, and to lose by one score to the inevitable MVP probably. I think that was a big moment in time for the Commanders.
Yeah. Indian Lake, Ohio agrees about the Ravens game. He also mentioned I think something that you said, George, the Miracle of Maryland made me think that this team has the destiny weight. And I agree. I think that's what kind of like for a lot of people felt like, are we the team of destiny type of thing? You know what I mean? But like, so who do you feel like in terms, like, I guess is the best way to say it, who do you feel like, who do you owe it the most? It's like, in terms of giving you hope, who would you say you owe that to? Well, not owe, that's a bad term I'm using, but who, in terms of an individual or even coaches or whatever, who do you feel like led you to this path about, all right, this team is for real? Like, what was it? Was it the player? We already know what player it could be, but was it the player? Was it the coaches? Was it the structure of the team?
I think the easy answer is to say Jaden Daniels, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna stay away from that. I don't know if there's a player, but what I've noticed is the propensity to come back in a game over and over again. Like games that this team would have lost year in and year out over the course of the last decade.
Yeah.
The team found a way to muster a W. Or even the games where people thought they were outmatched, they played super tough in, right? Like people had this narrative that they hadn't beat a playoff-bound team all season, right?
Yeah.
Based on, and it's kind of wonky how that played out because, like the part of the year and the part of the time that they played those teams, they were either under 500 or right at 500 and yada, yada, yada. And now that Arizona's out, it goes to the others. Arizona now goes to the non-playoff team. Type deal, but then you had the Philly game, right? You had the Philly game, and then so I know some people that have an asterisk on it, right? And even I was intrigued by the Philly matchup in the playoff if it would have came down to it because of the second win. I mean, because of the win against Philly as of late, and it being without Jalen Hurts and having to face Kenny Pickett. But even in that game, it was 5 turnovers.
Yeah,
5 turnovers that they overcame, right?
Exactly.
So like I could watch, like if I'm putting that on the scale, I can wash that away.
Exactly.
Those even out, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
We'll just live with the rest of the results from there. But like one player. Let me give you a player. Bobby Wagner. I'm gonna go Bobby Wagner. Okay. I think when we looked at Bobby Wagner the first 2 or 3 games, I think people thought he had lost a step a little bit. I think that Tampa, especially the Tampa game where it looked like the Heat was getting the best of the
team.
What
was the Heat.
Yeah, the Heat was getting the best of the team. You're talking about a early September game in the beginning of the year where everybody's not fully conditioned yet. And you in that Tampa sun, and it felt like 100 some odd degrees on the field. So I think when we saw the spike in his play, even though the defense was giving up what they were giving up, it seemed like it became like, okay, this is a bend but don't break defense.
Yeah.
This is not like a floodgates defense, right? Which we all know the difference in, right? Because you got the floodgate defenses that once the offense starts rolling, there's no way to stop them. But this defense has matured over the course of the year, and I'm gonna pay that respect to Bobby Wagner's leadership and his experience over the course of his years and what he's bringing here, and his familiarity with the system, of course. And you can see how the defense has gelled over time, right? Yeah. It still may not be an elite defense to most people, but it's playing formidable enough to give the Commanders a chance. And we all know if 5 ends up with the ball at the end of the game, with his history so far, which is going to go with the history so far.
Yeah.
I don't care how nobody dices this up. That's why I say anybody that has something to say about Jaden is a hater. Because all we can go off is what he's shown us in 16 games, right? Because
Agreed.
practically didn't play most of that Panthers game. So he's shown us that if the ball is in my hand last, we going home.
Yes.
We going home. So for the defense to step up in that middle part of the season, even though it wasn't, it didn't give up flashy numbers, it didn't have the gaudy, the gaudy type performances. It's bend but don't break, and that's good enough for this team right now.
Yeah, I like that. I like the whole thought process. Like what you just said. I think everything was on point. Glenn, what about you, bro? Like what individual, what element made you say all right, this is it? What, not game, but individual element, coaches, whatever, made you felt all right, this is what it is. I know this team is ready to compete at a high level.
To me, it's Dan Quinn. It's Dan Quinn, and I say it all the time. Y'all hear me say it. Teams take on a persona of the head coach, right? People want to give Adam Peters credit, but I give a lot of credit to Dan Quinn more so than Adam Peters. When you bring in former head coaches who want to coach with you, and we have not heard one time anything about ego. We've not heard one time about anybody trying to take over. We've heard nothing but one time about there being dissension in the ranks. We heard everything about these former head coaches working together with Dan Quinn. Anthony Lynn comes into town. First thing he does is take the running back group out to dinner, right? He had conversation with them. This is before Adam Peters really gets in town, right? As you see all this going on, and so they're building men, right? They're treating men like men. They're setting the expectation up here. Dan Quinn had a standard that, hey, this is what we're going to do, right? We're going to have a standard. This is our standard. We're about a brotherhood. We heard the brotherhoods talk the whole time. But he treated them guys like men. He told them whatever was in the past is in the past. I couldn't control the past. You can't control the past. We start from here. And he held people accountable. Let's be honest. They held people accountable. And some people who didn't perform were no longer here. And so when you're a head coach and you set that standard, and this is where we're going to go, I think I said it, and people talk about, he said, came in here, this is not a rebuild year for us, right? This is a year that we're trying to get a seat at the table, right? We want to be at the table. They brought 33 new guys in who didn't know anything about this Washington Commanders organization. So it was nothing to brainwash. They brought leaders in, and he treated them as leaders, and he held people leaders, even to the point where he doesn't have captains. They're different captains each week. So therefore, if you want to be that dog, you want that C on your chest, guess what? You got to perform every week and get it. You got to be that dude. So he made competition. He made them want to work hard. He made them want to move further. Nobody was given anything. Everybody had to work. How many times have we heard about everybody talk about the Hail Mary, or they talk about Zach Ertz's play? Everybody say, well, we practice that in practice. He made them prepared for game situation. And by putting them in situations like that, he made these guys believe, hey, regardless of what happens, we got this, right? 5, we got the ball. You're our dude. Terry McLaurin, you ain't got to worry about 1,500 catches for a season, right? You may get 5, but make those 5 count. How many times we seen Terry McLaurin with 3 catches but 2 touchdowns, right? And didn't get 100 yards. So again, he made everybody understand their role, and he brought this coaching staff together. He gave guys second chances that wasn't going to get second chances, right? So he may say, look, take full proof of your second chance and work with it. Cliff Kingsbury, second chance. Boom. Hey, I need you to go with it. Anthony Lynn. Hey, here's your second chance, right? We got my man Brian from the Eagles who got fired, right? Hey, Brian Johnson. Here I go. Here's your second chance, right? We kept Ryan Kerrigan. Boom. Young guys like Daryl Tapp. Hey, you want to be a good coach in this league here? coach the defensive line. This is what we need. So again, he was giving guys chances, opportunity, and Dan Quinn is the thing that keeps everybody together, right? Because he understands how to delegate, he understands how to manage, and he also understands how to encourage and lift these guys up, because all of them talk about Dan Quinn with high esteem, right? They believe in him. If he was Jim Jones, he's selling the Kool-Aid, right? Selling the juice. And guess what? He has everybody in that locker room, all 53 guys, drinking that, and people want to play for them. And so hat off to, I know people brought players in, but players are only good as the head coach allows them to be. He set the structure and tone for this building.
Yeah, and also don't forget about Tavita Pritchard too. They kept him on the staff. That he was on the old staff, and they kept him the quarterback coach. And he talks to Jaden a lot. That's another guy too. So they identified like the coaches they need to be here to change the culture.
And they brought Marcus Mariota in, and he brought a veteran guy in who was able to help him out, who didn't overshadow Jaden. And I think people talked about that, right? There's some veterans that you can bring in that will overshadow the rookie because of their name alone.
With him, exactly. He knows his place. He knows his place. He's not trying to take his job. Like, I know it sounds jacked up. He's not trying to take his job. Good point, though, Glenn. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
He's not trying to take his job. So all that just came into the right pieces were in place, and everybody was in the right seat on the bus.
I think that was a hell of a point by you, Glenn. Like, speaking of Quinn's impact rather than Adam Peters' impact, right? He brought the players. He brought in nearly 2/3 of new players. But like Dan Quinn is the one that has to make them believe. Like I like to tell people, like, coaches, like I like to blame and give kudos to coaches and players rather than the administration, because they're the ones that have to figure it out on the field. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that have to figure it out on the field. And a lot of things have been figured out on the field this year for this team, especially bring the overhaul of the roster. Like, it takes a special person to get 33 new people to buy into
make it work,
right? And along with the other 20 to 25 that remain, and getting them to buy in that this way is better than the way that they've known in the past. So, excellent point there, Glenn.
You know, and to add what you just said, Mo, and that's evident by the fact that Jonathan Allen wants to come back and play.
Yep, that's a fact.
That's evident by the fact that he did everything he could and everything he needed to do to get back on this team and play a playoff game.
Yeah, don't worry. You were Indiana, Lake Ohio. You ain't the only one, bro. I was one of them too. So I won't even play.
Well, they said if we ever saw Mariota on the field, it was gonna be disaster.
Yeah.
Now Mariota done came in 2 spots and won those 2 games.
And I've already apologized to Marcus. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's one thing you won't hear me. I won't die on the sword, bro. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Hey. But yeah, for me, a point it's definitely coaching. Like, for me, it's coaching, but I'll use it in a different way. What I liked about this team, when I figured out at a point where I really respected this team, and I use like a little joke. I would say it, in terms of being funny, but when they play bad teams, they just smash bad teams. That's when I kind of knew. Like, I felt like at that point, I was like, all right, they moving different. Like, I felt like this team, this coaching staff, they're preparing them now. It's not happening right now because I think they're kind of feeling themselves a little bit right at this point in time in the season. But I felt like with the hunger in terms of not making mistakes, playing disciplined football, and when they played a bad team, they made a bad team look like a bad team.
And that's what good teams do, Wole.
Yeah,
let's take it back to the Carolina game.
Yeah.
When Jaden got hurt, everybody could have just called it quits.
Yeah.
And they still hung 41 points on them.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Like, when you play a bad, like, we know when we talk about like this, usually, like, obviously, like, as fans, when we look at a team on the schedule that's not really good, we're like, oh yeah, we're gonna wax this team. Like, you check it off like this. But in Washington, that tends to be like the struggle game, right? But when they got to a point when they started rolling, like after the Giants game, like
the
after
Giants,
that Giants game,
and for this year at least, it was the Giants, the Bengals, right? Because the Bengals came on late, but at the time when the Bengals were struggling,
yeah, but they were still the Bengals.
Right?
They were still Joe Burrow, like
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Cardinals.
When they
like, you dominated the Cardinals. Like, there was like, but even like what you mentioned, teams like Tennessee, like Carolina, like the Browns.
Can I take it one step further?
Go ahead.
I'll take it one step further. Coming into this season, teams that were of equivalent rank, the Commanders dominated over the course of the whole year.
Yeah.
Right? Because, every year it could fluctuate a little bit, a couple of wins here, a couple of wins there. But like teams that were like, and like, the easiest way for me to think about it is the Commanders had the second pick, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Carolina de facto had the first pick, but Chicago made the pick, right? So Carolina, they beat Carolina, who was around that same bubble. The fourth pick in the draft was the third pick was the Patriots. The Giants were 6. They beat the Giants twice, right?
Yeah.
Teams of that. The fourth pick was Arizona. Beat them. Yeah. So you had 4 wins right there within the people that you ended last season in the same cluster as.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a quarter of the schedule that they handled right there. You talk about then they play Chicago, beat Chicago on the Hail Mary, right? So there goes another W. So when you start stacking those, you playing teams like the Ravens tough. You're going to have your one-offs that they beat the. I don't know where the Browns finished higher last year because of their draft position, but this year we knew they were kaput early on in the year. So they handled teams that were like of even stature before we knew that this was going to be a 12-win team.
Yeah,
and they smacked all of them.
Exactly.
And they in different ways too. That's if we want to really get into the nuances of. They beat each team a different way. They blew out Arizona.
Yeah.
They beat the Giants the first time with all field goals and no punts. Yeah. Right? Tressway didn't have a job for the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, facts. What a consolidation for what do they call it?
Conglomerate?
I don't know. Whatever the word is, man. What a gift for giving up the number, right?
Yeah.
I don't have to work for the first couple of weeks of the season, right? So
you worry about that, little paycheck he got too. So
he got paid and didn't have to come to work. So things like that, man. Like that's when optimist would have seen that and be like, okay, this is trending upward because Tennessee does have the number 2 ranked defense, James, but that offense is ranked number 32.
But even then, it goes to but even that though, like when you're a good team, and James, thanks, bro. Like you're supposed to beat teams that bad. Like when you're playing against a bad, that's a sign of a good team. I don't get into you can only play who's on your schedule.
Yep,
that is a true argument. That's a true statement. But also, when you play a bad team, you feel good about your team when you smash a bad team. When you don't struggle with a bad team.
Exactly.
Because what that does tell you, what that does tell you, when you play a good team, you may not win, but you'll compete. And that's what it tells you. You're good enough to compete with the good teams. So that's my thing. And to James, to your point, hey, how many last year for anyone that has a problem, but does beating teams never under 500? We were under 500 ourselves. Yeah, I'm talking about last year. Yes, I'm saying totally agree. So. No. James, we're agreeing with you. I'm just saying, bro, we're totally agreeing with you. What we're saying is that, when you're playing a bad team, you're supposed to do that. And that's a good thing. That's a positive thing.
And James, to your point, James, although this team was bad last year, that roster rehaul made this a different dynamic.
It made it harder for us. To me, it makes it harder for real to be a good.
It made it a harder dynamic. The other teams that I was listing were you said the Browns already.
Yeah.
It was they beat the Saints, even though it came down to some at the end of the game, but they beat the Saints. So they got based on where we saw them at this point of the season. At this point of this season. I'm not going to add in last season the way they ended off.
Yeah.
Based off what we started to see this year, when they faced a team that was lesser than or supposed to be equal, they handle their business. And if you do that more times than not, you'll be over 500, right? Because all the other games come into play. Then they beat the Cowboys game, right? How division games go.
Yeah.
They ended up getting the 12th win against the Cowboys to solidify that the Cowboys couldn't claim that they swept them, right? So they handle business on all fronts, man. This team overachieved, but it's been impressive to watch.
Yeah, let me acknowledge this. I want to acknowledge this first, though. Hey, appreciate Joe Birch, man. Appreciate you, man.
Thank
you. The channel, man. Appreciate you,
Birch.
Appreciate you.
Even though you're a Cowboy fan, appreciate you, Birch.
Oh, yeah, Cowboy fan? Oh, still appreciate you, though.
Appreciate you.
Go ahead.
I wanted to say this, because what Dan Quinn talked about this team and when they did this team played themselves each week, right?
Mm-hmm.
This team got better each week. And we saw in different aspects, this team got better each week. And some aspects they got better in the secondary as the year went on, bringing in Lattimore, right? They got better. They got better with in the running game, even though it wasn't a running back, it was Jaden Daniels, right? People starting to find themselves. Cliff Kingsbury started to find out what this team identity was, because there were several weeks that we didn't know what this team wanted to be, right? Can we be honest? We didn't know what the identity of this team was. We didn't know what the defense was going to be. We found out what the defense is. We can't stop the run, and we just hopefully if we put 8 in the box, maybe we can get it done, right? We found out in the second half of certain games. We found out that this team is able to make halftime adjustments, because most times in the second half they came out better than they were in the first half, right? And so they scored many times in the third quarter on drives. So we found out there was a complexity in this team, or a drive in this team, in order to get better each week, right? Yeah. If no one else believed in them, they believed in themselves. And I think that's what this team has. And everybody's talking the same thing. Everybody preaching the same thing. Unlike Philadelphia, George, they're not one win from imploding, one loss from imploding, right? This team is not one loss from imploding. This team, this team didn't limp into the playoffs. This team is on a 5. No one talks about it, but this team's on a 5-game winning streak going into the playoffs.
It is.
No one mentions it. No major networks talks about it. Nobody. This team is on a 5-game winning streak going into the playoffs.
I do want to read a question Paul has out there for us, and I got you too, James. You got a question as well. Paul says, "Question: how good are we? We are overcoming turnover, sloppy play, and still winning." I think we're getting by. I think we're getting by right now. I do think that once you play up and you're in the playoffs, so all these teams are good quality teams. So I think I would prefer to be back to where we were in the beginning of the season, just in terms of discipline and not turn the football over and not penalties. And more than turning the ball over, it's more like the penalties for real. Because we have like that one game against the Eagles, we turned the ball over like a trillion times. But other than that, typically we haven't even turned the ball like 100 times or stuff like that. We just been having a lot of dumb penalties. So I would like to kind of limit the penalties, play more, be like how they were prior, earlier in the season. Even we weren't like when we weren't winning certain games, we were still like we were in these games because we were playing solid defense. We were being disciplined. We were limiting the penalties. We were limiting turnovers. We were extending drives. We were just doing things of that sort. So I feel like we get back to that football. I feel like we can compete with, like, the Commanders compete with anybody. It's when you beat yourselves when you hinder. You put yourself at a point where you can be dominated. And if you want to put yourself in a position where you're not beating yourselves, especially when you're playing the better teams in the league. Like if you say you get to play Detroit, you don't want to live your life turning the ball over 5 times against the Detroit Lions, or having like losing the penalty battle there as well. Like you want to put yourself in a situation that's advantageous to winning a football game. So that's what I would say, Paul, in terms of how good are we. I think we're okay right now. I would like us to be playing better football in terms of being disciplined in the postseason. That's how I would state it.
I'm answered this way, not to be smart. We're good enough to be in the playoffs, right? And I say that not to be a smart aleck, because every team is 0-0, right? And every given, we talk about it, we preach every given Sunday, right? Yeah. Anything can happen, right? You get weather conditions in some place, and the ball rolls the wrong way, right? Yeah. We can get Zane Gonzalez, Lord forbid, to miss a field goal kick, right? But the team played great the whole game. All right. So we saw this team go a couple years ago down to Tampa with a Heineke, right? And almost won a football game. So, and that team wasn't that great. So again, and I say that because to say how great this team is, how good this team is, and this team is one penalty away, one play away, one Hail Mary away from going to the next game, or one Hail Mary away from going home. All right. So they can be as good as they want to be, as Wole said, if they eliminate the mistakes and play mistake-free football. We saw a team this year who didn't get into the end zone but kicked 5 field goals, right, and won a football game. All right. So again, this team has been all over the map this year. We saw even in these last 4 games, it took a coach going for 2, right, to help us win New Orleans, right? It didn't have to. He could have kicked the field goal and went overtime. So it is a little bit of luck and there's a little bit of preparation. And we're honest with ourselves, is a little bit of luck and preparation that helped this team get where they're at.
And circumstances of who you play down that stretch as well.
Listen, opportunity favors the prepared, guys.
Yeah.
Opportunity favors the prepared.
Yeah.
And the Saints went for 2. The Saints went for 2 when they could have tied the ball game up because they felt that they couldn't beat that team in overtime.
Exactly. That's what I always say. I agree with you.
I'm not going to take that away from this team. I'm not going to take that away from this team.
answer the question,
I think from that team that shouldn't have been in that situation in the first place.
In the first place,
yeah, it shouldn't have been. That's true.
But that's the ebbs and flows, right?
Yeah.
That's the ebbs. So we find out on Sunday. We really do. I think Sunday's when we find out, because no more can they hang this narrative that the Commanders haven't beat a playoff winning team or a team that was over 500 when they came into FedEx or not FedEx, Northwest or wherever they met them at. You know what I mean? Like, you can't say that anymore if this team comes out and gets a W this week, right? Right? If they come back out and avenge the week 1 loss, it's going to add to the allure of JD. It's going to be like he's seen the test the second time and he passed it because that test came week 1 in his first ever game, right?
Yeah.
So
right.
I think that this team is in the right spot because, like you said, nobody's mentioned the 5-game winning streak.
Mm-hmm.
That's been like really mum. Like I haven't even heard Commanders fans say that they've won 5.
No, they haven't really. They haven't really
right?
talked about it like that.
So this team is right where they want to be. They have somebody that's very confident. They are very hot right now. No matter how you felt about how the games are played, the outcomes resulted in W's.
Yeah.
Like typically when we're talking about teams sweeping through the month of December, which is the stat that they like to throw it out there for my favorite quarterback in the league, even though I love him. They love to throw that stat out there for Josh Allen. They love to throw that stat out there for Joe Burrow, right?
Pat Mahomes.
Pat Mahomes, what they do in December. This kid right now is 5-0 in December and January. I mean, we'll give him 5-0 because Mariota finished the game, but he's 5-0.
Yeah,
he's 5-0, right? So Sunday's the test. Sunday will tell us everything.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I felt like the whole 500 thing, because this for Eagle fans. I'm gonna be real with you, dog. You scored. I'm gonna say it again. You scored 33 points. You scored 33 points. That's good enough to win a football game. I don't care. Y'all weren't talking about like that about Jalen Hurts before that. So I don't even get why this whole Jalen Hurts is a thing. Y'all were trying to make him seem like he shouldn't even be a quarterback for y'all.
A couple of weeks before that, it was he can't. Him and AJ Brown ain't. He had to come up.
So I don't get into like all of that. And what did they do the following week? How much did they score? 40.
Yeah, he had to come out. He had to come to the post game and say, "This is what you guys want to see." Huh?
Yeah, exactly. So that was the only good game. That was the only 300+ yard game he had all year. So I don't get into. So when folks say, I don't put an asterisk on that joint because to be real, you scored 33 points. Your defense gave up 36. That tells 33. Mo, you watch football all your life.
You should win every game that you score 30
in. Is 33 points good enough to win a football game?
You should win every football game that your offense scores 30 in.
There you go. So that's how so when people try to say, well, they scored 36. Washington scored 36. They scored 33. That's a win over 5. That's a win to me.
And 5 turnovers.
And 5 turnovers. That's a solid win. I'm sorry. That's a solid win. No one, you can never not take that. Now, if Hurts was throwing for 500 yards this year consistently and was one of the elite like passers of the game, then I would be like, okay, good point. But again, he scored 33.
And scored 36. Let's not forget this. They spotted him 14 points before Jalen Hurts got out.
Exactly.
No, but that argument. I think I came on the show and I said that the argument, right? Don't give me the Jalen Hurts argument because Jalen Hurts don't play defense. That defense still gave up 33 points.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, with everything they had, they gave up 33 points. Yeah. I mean 36 points. It's a ridiculous argument. So what you're telling me is it would have been a shootout. That's what you're saying.
Bro, he wasn't even. This is the thing, man. This is why I don't even.
And they shut down Saquon in the second half.
Well, that's not even. This is the thing. What bothers me because one is the team is based on Saquon anyway, so I'm just going to keep it a bean. Like, let's keep it a bean. And then secondly, like y'all acting like, dog, y'all really acting like y'all love this dude. Y'all never did love this dude. Like, don't do this. Don't treat him now because he playing Washington. Like, man, we had Jalen Hurts. We would have been doing it. Like, dude, all right. And this is another thing. I'm sorry. Eagle fans, y'all gonna hate me. I'm sorry. The most valuable thing this dude does is the push. It's the little push joint. I'm sorry. Like, that's the most valuable thing he does. I'm sorry. Like, if you want to say, well, he a weapon for real, to me, it's like, yo, 3rd and 1, he automatic. I do think that's important. I say that, acknowledging that it is kind of important. Because it is demoralizing to know that, like, that's a guaranteed 3rd-and-1. You got it. It's demoralizing. But don't make it sound like he's throwing for 500 yards. If you're going to tell me the push tush is the thing, yeah, we was missing out on that. Then go with that argument. I feel better when y'all going with that argument, but not the throwing part. Like, I'm going to be real with you. Like, Kenny Pickett was finding people throwing the football. I think the week after, they scored 42, like 40 again. With him not playing. Just saying. Stop using that. It's annoying. It's very annoying.
You know what that signals? To answer the question of how good this team is?
Yeah.
That a team that most people see either representing the NFC in the championship or going to make it at least to the NFC championship feels threatened by the Commanders.
That's true. Good point.
They make all of those excuses.
Right? Yeah.
Like let's call it a spade a spade, right? That's signs that this team has turned the corner somewhat. They're not the same Commanders of old. They're not the Washington football team of old. They're not the team what they used to be named. This is a brand new regime. Everything is clicking on all. Of course, they have to continue to do it, right?
Yes.
For this narrative to continue to take place. But for this individual season in 2004,
it's totally different, bro.
It's totally different.
24, yeah.
2024, people got to eat that one. They got to eat that crow. This team surpassed every expectation.
Yeah, James. I told you. I told James I'm gonna read this question. Is someone trying to compare us to the 21 Eagles? I was like, no, we're better because they only won 9 games that year. That's the year they lost to Tampa in the playoffs. Is that scene?
The 2021.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts' first playoff game.
That's when they went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
No, they didn't win games.
No, they went to the Super Bowl.
They won more than 9 games in 20 when they won the Super Bowl.
I'm about to say they went to the Super Bowl.
Maybe he's thinking about.
I think he's talking about Jalen's first playoff game.
Super Bowl.
When they got smashed by
because you're right about Jalen Hurts' first playoff game. They got smoked by the Bucs.
By Tampa. I think he's talking about that one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I think he's talking about that one. But you could be right about 21 going to Super Bowl. I think he's talking about that one. Because they got smacked. We're better than that team. I'm sorry. Because Jalen couldn't throw for us. We're better than that team.
Can I answer your original question about who made you believe?
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to first say that what Glenn said about, because DQ was my answer originally, I can't improve upon anything Glenn said, especially allied to everything that Mo talked about, because the culture change, just the games they've won, especially these last 4 weeks after the bye where they went 4-0, like I said they would. and all of that, it would not have happened to any Washington team pretty much in this century. But I want to go bigger than that, because for me, if you're not going to take Dan Quinn and you're not going to take Jaden Daniels, then the person that gave me hope was Josh Harris and the Harris ownership group.
Okay, come on.
Because look at what they have put in place. Look at the sea change of how Washington is viewed, not just locally, not just around the NFL, but around sports. This was a dumpster fire, laughing stock, terrible, awful franchise. All the things we've made fun of, all the things we've talked about, rated by the DEA. The coach don't know that they can get eliminated. All the stuff that we've been memed and made fun of, and rightfully so, because we've all been doing it ourselves, not just everybody else. And now you are talking about an owner that's running a tight ship. He puts Adam Peters in place. They hired Dan Quinn, who was not their first choice and was not my first choice. Really? I was a Dan Quinn skeptic right over here. This guy wasn't buying that at all. Dan Quinn thought that the way that things ended in Dallas when them getting beaten that playoff game, that soured me on the idea of Dan Quinn as a coach completely. But look at this organization and where it is in 1 year. No stadium, no chance. That was a year ago before this ownership group took over. Nobody would climb into bed with this team because it would have been electoral poison for anybody that did it. Doing a deal with Dan Snyder was never going to happen. They were stuck in that hellhole they're in until hell wouldn't have it. Now, not only does Maryland want them, not only does Virginia want them, D.C. wants them too. D.C.'s probably going to get the deal done. They got a bill through Congress. when that was supposed to be impossible. They got a bill through Congress. This ownership group has completely turned this organization into what it was under Jack Kent Cooke and under Bobby Beathard and Joe Gibbs, when it was the gold standard, not just in the NFL, nationwide. That fan base that takes over stadiums in the South and in the West and wherever, that fan base that came from literally all over the world to celebrate Art Monk and Darryl Green at the Hall of Fame, that came from that. That came from when we were the number one franchise, arguably in sports, not just football. The fans, the band, the shaking stands, and all of that. And this ownership group is bringing us back to that level, and it's only taken them 2 years, and you can't even count the first year because they didn't take the team over until training camp. They were still Dan Snyder's Washington Commanders. Josh Harris and his ownership group's Washington Commanders. And again, the credibility, not just Harris, with all his experience in ownership, having guys like Magic Johnson involved, having Mitchell Rales, who locally is one of the most important figures in terms of building things around here, hiring people with connections to Congress so that they could get this thing through for the DC area. Josh Harris turning this around, that's the hope for me. We're not going to we may become a laughingstock organization again at some point, but it's not going to be with this group. It's not going to be with people like Magic Johnson involved. And again, look at the people who are involved. Some of the very best at what they do. Magic Johnson, one of the most successful sports people in the history of sports in North America. One of the most successful business people we've ever seen. This young man with the $1 million smile from Michigan, who's done all these things. And, oh, by the way, has done all these things while basically defeating one of the most horrific diseases America's ever seen. He's basically beaten AIDS, for God's sake.
He did.
I can't believe we're
my
sitting here
idol
talking
did.
about
My
that
idol
with
did.
our
My idol
team.
did. He did beat AIDS. Go ahead, continue though. Go ahead, continue.
But it's just that's what's so amazing is these are the people that are involved with us, and now you hear, oh man, so and so agents calling me. This is from guys like Schefter and Rappaport, and they're saying, my players are telling me, get me to Washington. Get me to Washington. Something we haven't heard since the early 90s and the late 80s. Get me to Washington. I want to be part of that organization. Josh Harris is the hope, and from all of that has sprung all the things you guys have talked about. And to have this kind of an organization in Washington when we've watched a lot of losing, a lot of frustration, a lot of bad ownership across several different franchises. And to have this with the Washington Commanders after all this time and everything we've been through, it is a dream. It is an absolute dream what the Harris ownership group has done. And I just commend all of them, everybody, every single person, because look at what they have done and look at what they've changed in 1 year. And yes, we had to get lucky. We had to have Zerline make that kick in New York. And we had to have the number 2 pick and get Jaden Daniels, and what Jaden Daniels has done. Again, you brought up Cincinnati. I remember the show we did that night, and I was making biblical references about Jaden Daniels because it was like, it was such a moment, that throw for that touchdown that won that game. I mean, again, the angels shone the light down and the angels sang. It was like that. It was like that. And I can't. The future that we are looking at. I mean, again, I don't even want to talk about it because it's like I don't want to jinx it and I don't want to sabotage it. But it's like this is a team that's going to win, going to be a factor in the championship race. Maybe, who knows? Maybe for the next decade, maybe for the next 15 years, because that's the kind of people we've got involved. That's the kind of quarterback we've got. That's the kind of organization we're going to be. And all these things were not possible 12 months ago, 24 months ago. They were impossible. And now they are a reality.
Mo, you wanted to say something? Go ahead.
I heard Magic, and I was like, everything Magic touches turns to gold.
Yes.
like, it's hard.
It's hard to root against him, man. It's hard to root against Magic.
Man, it's hard, man. It's hard to not be objective. Like I waited till the end of the year to give all my flowers to Jaden because we've seen quarterbacks have spurts and yada yada yada.
Yeah,
but you looking at what that kid put on tape this year, it's hard to say that's not. I'm gonna say it here. I can argue that's the best rookie quarterback season of all time. Efficiency, records broken. He has the moments, right? The Hail Mary, the comeback. He has the comeback wins.
Yeah,
right?
The Eagles game too, the winning touchdown. Yeah,
he has a record or two over the course, right? He was at such an efficient rate at the beginning of the year throwing the football for so long. I have a friend that's a lifelong Commanders fan. I like to give him a hard time. Even if I believe something, I won't say it around him because he's just that's just the giant in me. But he said one day, he was like, I think it was after the Falcons game, he was like, Dan Snyder's somewhere eating crow, and that's the reason I smile. I was like, you know what? You're right. You're right. You're right.
Hey, with the money he got
somewhere right now, he got to be sick to his stomach somewhere right now.
I got some.
I think you're right.
I got billions of reasons why he's not sick.
No, I'm gonna be real. I think no. He got arrogant, and he is a Redskin fan, and he wanted for the word. The money, yeah, but it does bother him because
it bothers him, Glenn.
It's bothering him.
This bothers him, Glenn.
This bothers him
immediately.
Yeah, this bothers him.
Immediately.
Does he stress over it because he got the money? He can lean on it, like I got money, but it bothers you. It does bother you.
I was joking with tongue in cheek. All jokes aside, we know it bothers him for the simple fact that he tried for so many years to do it. He tried to buy it. It didn't come.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? He tried to get a good coach from Steve Spurrier. It didn't happen. Right?
He went back to Joe Gibbs. He couldn't
went back to Joe Gibbs. It didn't happen. Should have kept Marty Schottenheimer, but that's a whole new podcast by itself, right?
Had some great drafts in the early 2000s and some great trades, and you know what I mean.
So he's sitting somewhere. But again, when you're the owner and you don't watch your toy, and you let other people run it into the ground, because all of it wasn't Dan Snyder.
Yeah, it was the people who had running it too. Yeah,
it's people that he had running it, and he didn't watch. He was on his watch.
All the money went to him, didn't it?
It was on his watch.
All the money, all the 5.1.
Oh yeah, definitely. So it's on him. I agree.
Yeah.
All the money went to him, so it's all on him.
Right, but it's all on him. What I'm saying is, you can't when you are owner of something, right? You delegate, because let's say we have not said Josh Harris's name, and none of these people's quit yet. Yeah. We said everybody that Josh Harris is hired.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Right. We said everything. Everybody. We have not said Josh Harris' name. We named everybody Josh Harris hired. So guess what? When you winning, is everybody when losing it was Dan Snyder. Dan Snyder did not watch the program that he was in. He didn't watch the people that was in the organization. I can name some people. I'm not going to name some names now because we live of people that did some things that was dirty, that was out of there, and that they did not know they was doing it. Right. But again, when you're the owner, you take when your name's hear this. If something happens to the assistant coaches and all that, Dan Quinn takes the fall because you're the man. You're the man that's driving the boat.
Yeah, it's similar to I always say this. All right, I'll use it in current and what's happening in real life stuff right now. Like Mike Vick as a coach in Norfolk. What's going to make him a great coach? What's going to make him good? It's about who he hires is on his staff. Obviously, him being a coach, but it's about who he hires on his staff. Mm-hmm. That's what's going to really make him or make or break him. Because just like Deion too, who Deion had on his staff, it's like who you bring on your staff helps you become like the coach you need to be. You know what I'm saying? It's same real quick, even here. I
was just having that conversation
earlier. So it goes to what you're talking about. Like Dan Snyder is like, one, he's just not competent, but two, you don't know who to bring on your team to help you build your organization and build your team. You were getting dudes that weren't qualified, weren't really about that, that hard work to build a championship team. You know what I'm saying? You were going off name recognition. You know what I'm saying? You wanted some nostalgic feeling.
Playing
you went
fantasy
to get
football.
Bruce Allen because of the father. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Like instead of just looking at a situation where, all right, who is the bright young minds? Who can I have? What kind of coach I can have? What direction do I need to go? And then you go off of that and hire the right people. So Glenn, I know what Glenn's talking about because it's almost like what we watch now in today's football. Like I mentioned, like Vic, it's all about you watching Vic right now. Like who is Vic going to bring on his staff to fulfill the dream and the goals he wants to do to build Norfolk State? So that's how I look at it for this.
I give you one better. I give it better in kind of apple to apples, right? Vince McMahon and WWE. Vince and Daniel, right? Hey, Vince took the fall, but that bad boy's still rolling. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you
because
you
we
look
have people underneath because of people
because of people underneath that knew how to do it.
Gotcha.
So when you let the people underneath do it and you put the right people in place, hey, you step back and you just manage.
And right, and now Vince can wait till all of the negative pressure's gone and pop his head up back again later on, right?
Well, look, there's a board, there's a seat on the board of TKO that's empty, and there's one blank seat. I can tell you figure out who that blank seat goes to.
Let me address this. Hold on, because we back to the Camaros. I'm address this though.
I'm sorry.
I know we got a Tampa fan here, man. I can tell. I see you guys are nervous. It's okay. It's Baker Mayfield time, bro. You don't even believe that yourself.
I won't say that though.
I like Baker. I like Baker,
but
you know, like I won't say Baker Mayfield time, but go ahead, though. I feel
you got to give. You see, like I think the same way I said, I got to just base it off of this year.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield has 4,500 yards passing and 41 touchdowns. I don't care how good you thought Baker Mayfield was going to be ever in life.
Oh, I like Baker.
Nobody I know ever thought Baker was of that Baker, magnitude. 4,500 yards and 41 touchdowns.
That's why Liam Coleman's getting a head coach talk.
Come on.
Yo, I will say, like, what happened last game?
This is the second OC that Baker's going to get a job in 2 years.
Bro, that jump was like 100 degrees. Hey, bro, it was like 100 degrees that day. But it's all good.
Look, Janet Jackson, what have you done for me lately?
Let me explain. Let me throw like for my Buccaneers fan, which you know what I'm saying. Like I appreciate you too, bro, for joining the chat. So I do appreciate it.
Yes.
Bro, like Washington is so different from what you saw in week 1. So that's all I can say. It's about who you are now. They're different. It's night and day.
That was
and I would make the argument
Daniels ago.
Yeah, and I would make the argument. I would make the argument. And secondly, you're not even as healthy as you were that game.
They're not.
And I would say that you were playing better ball the first 3 weeks of the season than you are towards the end of the season. You're not.
I was about to bring that up. I
both
watched
teams aren't
a good chunk of that game against New Orleans, and they were not
both
good.
Teams aren't the
Washington
same.
wasn't no 13-3 down in New Orleans. I can tell you that.
And I'll say both teams aren't the. Let me put it this way. So, and it takes away any biasness or anything. Both teams are far different from what they were week 1. That's fair to say. Let's put it that way.
That was 18 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
I think that's fair to say. I think
you're talking about a kid that was coming into his first game. You're talking about a whole regime that was coming into their first game.
Yeah.
A whole regime versus a playoff team the year prior.
Yeah.
That won a playoff game, actually.
Yeah.
Tampa won a playoff game last year.
And almost won another one.
Play well. Like, look, I root for Baker, man. Look, I was a Baker. I supported Baker when I saw my man dancing out there in the streets doing the. I was like, oh, Baker down. I think Baker down. So I like Baker, Oklahoma. I like Baker. So I'm like, I don't dislike Baker. I do like Baker. But I'm just saying, like, in terms of your argument, both teams are different. That's what I will tell you. Both teams are far different from week 1. So if you want to use that argument. All right, so let me go back to the topic at hand though. Where was a point where you you were high and then you were like, you started to doubt like where this team was going to be? Like, was there ever any doubt? Once they reached a certain level, then they started playing a certain way. We had that stretch. Was there a particular point where you were starting to doubt your thought process? I'm gonna start with you, George, because I see your face. I see your face expressions right now, and I like it. I like seeing.
There definitely was watching that Thursday night game and watching the defense do everything it could to win this game, and the offense just giving them next to nothing.
You're talking about the Eagles game, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about the Eagles Thursday night game. That was when I was concerned because there was so much on the line in that game, and I was not thinking that our offense was going to fail us because there was no reason to think that. The defense had been the problem. And here's this defense fighting and scratching and clawing, and they're clamping A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, which and none of us thought that was going to happen. No way. And this offense couldn't do squat. And then Saquon happens. And I just felt leaving that game, or watching that game and watching that ending, and I'm like, man, we've blown the chance to win the division. Are we going to sort of limp into the playoffs? Because I still thought we were going to get to the playoffs. Are we going to limp into the playoffs and kind of end up meekly surrendering? Because I was worried. I was like, man, if Jaden's rib's going to be a problem all year, that's one. And two, is Cliff going to fall off the cliff? Yeah. Everybody was talking about it at that point. Oh, it's the late season. We all know what happens to Cliff Kingsbury. And let's face it, that game, I thought he did an abysmal job in that game with a lot of the stuff he called and just the execution and everything that was going on. And of course, we knew they were on fumes and physically they hadn't had the bye yet. So that was some of the explanation. But that's where I was very worried about Washington at that point, because it was one thing for the defense to fail. We've seen that plenty. It was another thing to see Jaden Daniels look limited, struggling, hitting guys in the foot, hitting the ball, hitting the ground like 2 and 3 yards in front of guys. We hadn't seen that all year. What was going on? That was that if there was a moment of real doubt, that was my moment of real doubt.
All right, so my man, I saw this. Like I was trying to look something up. My man, where'd he go? Jeremy. Jeremy said I had doubt before the Hail Mary to beat Chicago.
That was an ugly game.
Yeah, that day it looked good. I was at church that game.
Yeah,
I was paying attention to it. I was like, yeah, we struggling with Chicago like this? Okay. After we would dominate most of the game. Mo, I'll start with you, bro. When did you?
It was absolutely the first Cowboys game.
Yeah.
It was absolutely the first Cowboys game.
There you go.
Cooper Rush was super efficient. Yeah. I think he only had like 7 incompletions for the whole game. Yeah. Rico Dowdle was running the ball.
You know what?
The Dallas defense was pressuring Jaden a lot. They were getting home. They had like 5 sacks, the 2 interceptions. That was the first time I don't think it was the first time he had 2 turnovers in the game, but that was the first time I looked at the passes that were thrown that were intercepted, and I was like, okay. Like I think that would have been the 3rd game of the losing streak at that point. And I was like, okay, people had that narrative out of the Cliff Kingsbury
second half period. Yeah.
So like I was like, this could be bad, right?
Yeah.
Like this could be bad. If Tennessee didn't come up the next week and the performance ended up being like that, because of their incompetencies over there, and I just like, even if the Commanders would have won that game and it was closer than what happened in real life, I think people would have had questions, right? So we're coming off that Cowboys game, in a game where like Terry McLaurin didn't make a play until like the last 2 minutes of the game, right? Which was not even 2 minutes, the last minute of the game and whatnot, So that was cause of concern right there. Jaden led the team in rushing that day by a wide margin.
Yeah.
A wide margin. It didn't even make sense, right? So like even if you combine everybody else's yards, he had more rushing yards than them. That toted the rock that game. So that was when a little bit of doubt came in my mind as to whether the Commanders are going to continue to press forward.
Finish it out.
Yeah, but the next week started the 5-game winning streak. So,
about you, Glenn? When did you think, bro? When did you? If you had doubt, when was that point?
I gotta agree with Jeremy a little bit. Was the Chicago game because they couldn't close it out?
You did say the Chicago.
They let Chicago hang around, but then you like, okay, Hail Mary, maybe they can get it right, give them another week, right? So then it goes back to what Mo said. The Dallas game, when they came out flat and they couldn't get a lead on Dallas, and they couldn't get momentum, and we saw the offense sputter, right? You saw the offense sputter, and you saw people start running the ball even more. Dowdle looked like he was the second coming of Ezekiel Elliott like 4 or 5 years ago, and it was like the margin, they couldn't stop it. I'm like, oh, this team may be in trouble, right? This team can't stop Dallas. Then I'm looking at the schedule like. They got to play Philly again. They got to play Dallas again. They got to play New Orleans and Atlanta again.
Yep.
And I'm sitting here looking at and we did the show about could they go 4-0? And George the only one said yeah. And I'm sitting here like 3-1, and Mo, I think somebody even crossed my mind. Dang, do I say 2-2 because they could bump their heads twice, right?
I think Mo had 3-1. Mo had 3-1.
Yeah, Mo had 3-1. But I'm thinking in my mind I should go 2-2, but I'm gonna have faith in this team 3-1 because I definitely didn't think they're gonna be Philly because of the way everybody talk about that Philly game. But let's be honest, we got to realize Philly missed field goals. Philly missed field early. Philly missed
the first game, the first Philly game.
Oh, yeah, first Philly game.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
No, that's facts. That's
Philly
facts.
left points on the board, so it shouldn't even been that close. The first Philly game.
That is good. That's a good point. That's
right.
A good point.
So, but because it was close, and Saquon in the second half, it could have been a blowout. We could have turned that bad boy off at halftime if Philly would make a field goals because they missed 2, right? So it shouldn't have been that close. But again, the Chicago game and the Dallas game are the ones that kept me had questioned a little bit of doubt in my mind if this team would this team bump their head. So,
hey man, Paul. I mean, you were in doubts. You had some doubts though. I know you, Paul. You had some doubts. Don't lie, boy. I had doubts at the Dallas game. That Dallas game pissed me the hell off. I don't know if I've ever been mad in the game, mad at a team performance like that. That Dallas team wanted to quit, and you gave them a W. That bothered me.
They
gave them lights to play better football because they really wanted to quit on the coach. They really wanted to quit. The way they were going into that game and what we put out there, I was yeah, man. Nah, I was doubting it. I was like, they called up the cliff. I was on that thing. They called up the cliff. He need to start. Play calling got to be better. This defense is trash because I was like, they can't stop a nosebleed on the run. I'm like, yo, y'all, we just lost to Cooper Rush. I'm like, bro, what are we doing out here? What we do? I'm not gonna lie to you. I'd had so much. That's all I look at the schedule. I was like, dog, we can't beat Dallas. Then who can we beat? I look at the schedule. I was like, none of these teams ain't sweet. Cause I was like, yo, we playing I think it was Tennessee, right? Tennessee, but after that, right? Was Tennessee after that game?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yo, we can't compete with Dallas. So, yo, Tennessee can give us their defense is better. They could probably we would play well, but now I didn't know that Tennessee was going to turn the ball over every which way to help us get right because they helped us get right. Tennessee helped us get right.
It was you going back picking against the Commanders. That's what got us right. You picked Dallas.
After that, I was like, I'm not picking Washington no more.
Yeah,
that's how dejected I was. I'm not picking Washington. That's how dejected I was. I was so dejected at that game. I was like, yo, I'm gonna be superstitious as hell. I'm never picking this team again. I'm just never gonna pick this team again to win because it's just that game is really annoying. That's when I knew I was not new, but that's when I thought yeah, I don't know, they could turn this around. You just lost to the Cowboys, and we've seen this team. If you're a Washington fan, you've seen this team start the season hot and then crash late. We've seen this. You're a Washington fan. I've seen this with Gus Frerotte when he was in the helm on the squad. I've seen it with
my man took it back to Gus.
Yeah, I seen it when the money team with Dion and them, the money team. We started the season off good, and then we just crashed at the end. I saw with Jim Zorn, first year, started the season hot, crashed at the end. So I'm not one. I've been a Commanders Redskins fan for a minute, so I've seen it. I've seen us start fast and crash at the end. So when I start seeing signs, I'm like, yeah, this is similar. Similar.
History's replaying itself.
Yeah, we just lost to a team that we shouldn't beat, and we didn't look good at all. Has the league caught up to us? That's the first thing you're going to say. Has the league, because the issues you had in the past, stopping the run has been throughout the season. Us trying to stop the run has been an issue throughout the season. But the one thing we can lean on is this offense, extending drives, consistently getting points, getting an opportunity to get points, looking at least can move the football. They weren't even moving the football now. Against Dallas, it was Dallas knew everything Washington was doing. And I was like, all right. Because we didn't see it. We started to see it with the Steelers and whatever. We've seen it, it started, something started to change. So, yeah, for me, that was it. I'm with y'all. That was it for me. You know what I'm saying?
It turned out to be a pivotal point in the season where I guess they had to get back to square one and look at themselves, and they turned it around.
Yeah.
Ooh, nice play, boy.
I know watching the game too. Yeah, the bye definitely helped out. I do. You talking about this play? Oh, dang, nice play. Oh, touchdown. Oh, this game is like that. I'm sorry. college playoff games like that.
It turned up in this quarter, didn't it?
Yeah, it's turning up. Like, yeah, is that just like is that still the backup quarterback? Did the quarterback come back for Notre Dame?
It's 13. Back? He's the captain, so I think he's the starter.
Oh, okay, so he came back after the concussion. Like I thought he had a concussion. All right, cool. Because the other backup quarterback was he kept him in. Like he kept him in. But yeah, man. Hopefully, this team is like you said, Utah. Like this team knows how to finish, and we got that so far. Yeah, Leonard's back. The starter's
Hey, man, the beautiful thing about this is 3 more wake ups, and we're gonna hear that beautiful music waiting all day for Sunday night. I'm not a fan, but hey, what I say before the season started, I'm interested.
Yeah,
I know you just rather win. Not for you. Looking good, losing sucks. I feel you, bro. I'd rather win too, bro. It ain't about look, man. At the end of the day, this is what I will say in terms of you coach whatever. When you play, it's okay to do that with bad teams, but you gotta there's the probability. Eventually, you're gonna have to. When you play good teams, you can't. The chances of winning ugly is gonna be slim. When you play good teams, that's the thing. That's the thing. You don't want to. When you're in the postseason, you're going to be sent. You're playing good teams. Supposedly, so you gotta. Yeah, exactly. So losing ugly typically isn't a thing in the postseason. Typically isn't a thing in the postseason. So, I mean, winning ugly, isn't a thing in the postseason. So that's why you want to kind of look clean of anything, man. You just don't want them to beat themselves. I think that's the most important thing.
That's the biggest thing right there. Yeah, don't beat yourself. Don't beat yourself.
So that's pretty much what it is.
Don't give it away. Don't give it away.
Don't give up. Yeah, don't give up the church's money. Don't give up the church's money. You know what I'm saying? Like
you make them come beat.
You know what? I was gonna say something ignorant. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna close this out. I was about to say something ignorant. It was about to happen too. It really was. I had to catch myself. I really caught myself. Taylor Heineke looked good losing to Tampa, still sucked. Yeah, did he look good? I mean, he had like a stretch.
Man, listen. That man has moved on. He is right in his rightful place as a backup.
He cashed in.
He had to do that year that he was here. He faced the greatest quarterback of all time in his first playoff game.
Okay, I would make the argument that Tampa won ugly that game. That's not make that argument.
Tampa won ugly.
No, they did. Game. They did win ugly that game. That's
but we weren't a great team either, though. Like we were under 500, right?
Listen, man, y'all got
we were 7-9.
Alone, man. So we weren't a good team. So
he left it all out there, man. You remember when he dove for that pylon?
Man? Yeah,
and then we had to put up with the dadgum Heineke hive the next 2 years.
And we had a backup quarterback. You know what? We were the bad team. So
George,
we were the bad team.
George, I would normally let that go, but this show, that was like 4 weeks after I debuted on this show.
I know, that's terrible.
And the slander that young man got.
For me?
But the way that he won folks over in that game. The way that he won a little bit of folks over in that game was poetic and justice for what.
Well, he didn't win me over that game, but then when I saw him play again, then I was like, I'm over this dude. Like that was cool.
Yeah. It was just the effort in that game.
The effort is what got you. It was like Rudy. It was like a Rudy Rocky type thing. Like you just had to root with him.
And you know what?
It was like Rudy.
That's
all. I don't love Heineke, Brody. I do not love Heineke.
And then I had to watch what Heineke did on Sunday night in Dallas when Dallas scored 56 against us.
I watched that game too. That was terrible.
I
love Heineke. Hey. Indian,
that was
Ohio.
Not
Ohio.
great.
I do not love me. I do not.
But then things like what he did in Indianapolis with Terry McLaurin makes you like, oh, this dude. That type of stuff.
You mean when Terry McLaurin took that cornerback's man card forever and literally ripped the ball away from him? Should have been an interception. Let's not go down this road. Taylor dadgum Heineke. Man, it's like the cousin. It's like the first time. It's almost as bad as that.
What'd you say, Mo? What'd you say about me?
I said, man, let's get back to lighter terms, man. Tell these people they can find us on.
Yeah, I'm about to end it. Yeah, we about to end this. You will not get me talking about no Taylor Heineke. Y'all will not get me.
Nah, we ain't gonna do
that. Hey, anyway, y'all appreciate all y'all for pulling up. Don't forget to tune into our Commanders versus Bucks NFL Wild Card pregame show Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be on YouTube and IG Live. We'll also be streaming on the Urban Sports Scene X. Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast platforms. Just search All Burgundy and Go Everything. Also tweet us at ABG_everything. Hit us up on IG and TikTok at ABG_everything. Appreciate y'all. right now for who's subscribed to our YouTube channel. I know hopefully you newbies hit that red subscribe button. Also, man, while you're on there right now, just hit that like button. Hit it right now. We're gonna make sure it's good for the Washington Commanders algorithm on YouTube. So hit it right now. All right, I'm waiting on it. All right, we got it. Cool. We there.
And
all right, man. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Anyway, you've been listening to All Burgundy and Gold, everything powered by the Urban Sports, staying in Fox Sports Radio 96.9 FM at 1340 AM. Hopewell, Virginia folk, ages. You dig? Deuces. Hey, Paul, appreciate you, man. Thank you, man. Appreciate you. Thanks for the compliment. Hey, we out.